dangers.
The most dangerous for now is clusters. If you touch it, you can make blow up.
The work to save innocent civilians, removing thousands of Russian landmines and booby traps across Ukraine. And will he or won't he? The 2024 question over President Biden's re-election plans. Plus, former President Trump, in the middle of a re-election bid of his own, visits the site of the toxic train derailment in Ohio. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Russian President Vladimir Putin pulls out of a critical arms control treaty with the United States. In Washington, I'm John Jessup.
And good evening, I'm Jenna Browder. The move essentially means Russia's nuclear program will no longer be visible to the United States. President Biden today calling it a big mistake.
That remark coming on the heels of the president's meeting with Eastern NATO allies before heading home from his trip to Kyiv and Poland. The summit designed to highlight the unity between countries taking a stand to defend democracy.
The B-9 was founded in 2015 after Russia attempted annexation of Crimea. And today, as we approach the one-year anniversary of Russia's further invasion, it's even more important that we continue to stand together. And I think this is proof of this, how strongly we feel. That's why I wanted to meet all of you in person here today. As NATO's eastern flank, you're on the front lines of our collective defense, and you know better than anyone what's at stake in this conflict, not just for Ukraine, but for the freedom of democracies throughout Europe and around the world.
Meanwhile, China's top diplomat kicked off high-level meetings in Russia, hinting at strengthening ties between Moscow and the communist regime as we near the one-year anniversary of the Russian invasion. China claims Russia was provoked into the war, but it also says that it's impartial and wants a peaceful solution.
Since fighting began, the Russian military has planted thousands of landmines and booby traps across Ukraine.
As Chuck Holton reports, one American Green Beret is dedicating himself to help clear the danger.
Thousands of villages across eastern Ukraine now look like this. Most residents have either fled or died in the fighting. Once areas are liberated from Russian occupation, people start to come back. The downside is what Russian military left behind. Landmines, booby traps, and IEDs litter the landscape, meaning no one is safe until every square foot of land has been cleared.
It can be village, can be field, can be critical infrastructure, whatever. The most dangerous for now is clusters. If you touch it, you can make blow up. The yards, roads, fields, everywhere. Hundreds, I think maybe thousands. But we have a choice. All of my guys need to be on the dangerous area.
The challenge is that there's no battlefield that is exclusively soldiers forever. The U.S. has gone away from scatterable munitions, scatterable anti-personnel and anti-armor munitions that do not self-detonate over a period of time.
And it can remain dangerous for decades.
This is yet another kind of Russian terror that will have to be dealt with for years to come. It's even more cruel and meaner than firing a missile, because there is no anti-mine system that could destroy at least part of the threat, as our air defense does.
Many people know the joy of taking a walk in the woods, and here in Ukraine, that's a common pastime. But now with almost 2 million acres of land contaminated by landmines, it's going to be generations before people will be able to do that again. And that means that what was once an enjoyable pastime now could be a matter of life and death.
Even when it's not in an active combat zone, the mines can be unstable, and you don't know how long they've been there. By the time you get on top of that thing, you can do everything right, and it can still detonate. But these are things that, they'll kill children down the road. Some of these mines you're seeing in Ukraine will kill children that won't be found. They have for decades all around the world.
Ryan Hendrickson is very familiar with landmines and IEDs from his career as a U.S. Green Beret.
I stepped on a landmine in 2010, nearly took my life. I did 7 more trips back to Afghanistan as a Green Beret.
Upon leaving the military, he wondered what God's plan was for his life going forward.
Everybody, especially veterans, you battle with your purpose. What is my purpose? What am I supposed to do? What mark am I going to leave when I'm gone? Will I be remembered? A lot of people ask that question. And I was searching for that purpose after Afghanistan closed the way it did. And I found it, in February when Russia escalated the war over here in Ukraine.
Hendrickson then headed to Ukraine, not exactly sure what help he could offer.
Americans, we don't have to live in fear of our next step, but a lot of the world does. And Ukraine is when this conflict is over, Ukraine is going to end up being the most landmine country in the world.
It's crazy, the amount of civilian destruction here. Just one of the places that we're looking into.
Now, Ryan works on the front lines, taking on the dangerous work of disarming dozens, even hundreds of landmines in a day.
I've been asked a few times about how I kind of track them down a little bit. So there was one, I already pulled that. And then you got 2, 3, and 4. And then it starts going uphill.
I feel, first of all, it's respect of guys like him. It's a very difficult job going to another country in war. He can't be with his wife, with his family. It's very important, and I appreciate it.
For this old soldier, it's not about the praise. It's having the faith and hope that something positive can come out of his own tragedy.
So because I believe that when I'm born and when I die, that's out of my hands. So everything in the middle, life is extremely short, extremely short. So why not help people while you're here?
In southern Ukraine, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Thanks, Chuck. Really compelling reporting there. Well, here at home, as Americans wait for confirmation whether the president will run for re-election, some good news for the White House.
That's right. President Biden seeing his highest approval rating in more than a year. Abigail Robertson is at the White House and joins us with some of the latest numbers. Abigail?
Well, Jenna, according to a new NPR PBS Marist poll that was conducted after President Biden's State of the Union address, Biden's approval rating is at 46%, which is the highest approval number he's seen since March of last year. The poll is also showing more confidence in Biden from Democrats and Democrat-leading independents heading into 2024, with 83% responding they have a favorable view of Biden and 50% saying they believe they have the best chance to win in 2024 with Biden on the ticket, while 45% would like to see a different candidate. The poll showed bad news for former President Trump, however, with 54% of Republicans and Republican-leaning independents responding that they think the GOP has a better chance of winning the presidency in 2024 with someone other than Trump. Trump's favorability amongst Republicans polled is 67%, which is down from 79% last November. And 25% of Republicans responded that they have an unfavorable view of Trump. And as more candidates jump into the race, it's likely former President Trump has an uphill battle to win the party's nomination again.
Abigail, we know age played a big factor in the poll. President Biden, he's 80, former President Trump is 76. How is that playing out with voters?
Well, at age 80, President Biden is the oldest person to serve as president. And in 2024, former President Trump is going to be 78. And we are already seeing younger candidates like Nikki Haley drawing attention to their age and calling for younger leaders to be elected. Take a look.
President Trump is my friend. I called him before I did this. We had a good conversation. He was the right president at the right time. He broke the things that needed to be broken, and he worked to fix them. The reason I'm running is we got to move forward. We got to move forward. We can't keep dealing with these issues in the past. And I think that we need a young generation of leaders.
And as you all pointed out, President Biden has yet to officially announce he's seeking re-election. He said last year that he would probably do so in the beginning of 2023. Now the rumor is he's going to in April, which is causing some to question if he is going to announce he's seeking re-election at all. And meanwhile, in the Republican Party, we're likely to see more names throw their hat in the ring to get in that primary, like former Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Tim Scott, who have both been spending time in Iowa recently. John, Jenna?
All right, thank you, Abigail. Well, joining us now, Nathan Gonzalez, editor and publisher of Inside Elections and a Faith Nation contributor. Nathan, let's just pick up where Abigail left off. There's a headline in Politico today, and it read, Biden may not run, and top Dems are quietly preparing. If that's the case, Nathan, any offering or any ideas on who might throw their hat into the ring as far as Democrats go?
Well, I think first we have to look to the vice president. I mean, she is so close to the presidency right now that I'm not sure why she wouldn't run if Biden indeed does not seek re-election. A name that's been mentioned a lot in the years since the last election is Mayor and now Secretary Pete Buttigieg, but he's taken on a lot of criticism after the government's response to various transportation crises that we've had. I think Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer is someone who's going to be encouraged to run in the case of Biden not running. And I'll throw in Arizona Senator Mark Kelly. He maybe doesn't get as much talk, but I think he's ambitious, and he's a former combat pilot, astronaut, married to former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, and they have a lot of advocacy that they've done in the past few years since she was shot. So, it's going to be, if Biden doesn't run, there are going to be a lot of people reconsidering their future plans.
Now, on the GOP side, is it looking like anyone can actually best Donald Trump?
Yeah, it depends on the size of the field. There is clearly, these latest poll numbers and others, the shine is off of President Trump. He is not as strong as what he once was. But if multiple candidates divide up those voters who do want to move forward or who do want an alternative, then Trump can still win. I think he still has a base of at least 25 to 30% of primary voters who still prefer him and follow him, and he's their guy. But the size of the field matters.
One of his big supporters, of course, is Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Greene faced backlash this week over a tweet endorsing the idea of a national divorce. This is what she said. We need to separate by red states and blue states and shrink the federal government. Nathan, is this a far-fetched idea or something that's gaining popularity?
No, it's just it's messy. Let's just assume that she's serious. I'm not sure how it works out. First, I understand that there's frustration that people don't want to be under the rule of the party they disagree with, but there are as many Trump voters in California as there are in 12 other states. John and Jenna, Alaska, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, West Virginia, Idaho, Nebraska, Mississippi, Arkansas, Kansas, and Utah combined have the same number of Trump voters as in California. So what does that divorce look like? And I'll even put out how do we define a red state and a blue state? Let's take the Congresswoman's state of Georgia, a state where most Republicans win statewide, except for Biden won it. There's 2 Democratic senators. So is Georgia a red state or a blue state? And where does that fall in this so-called national divorce? It's just ridiculous. I think because we are a complex country, and it's not even it's evenly divided, but not under these clear lines of state boundaries.
A Democratic Senator John Tester of Montana announced today he will seek re-election. Nathan, just a few seconds left, but why is this a big race to watch?
It's huge. Democrats, the reason why they were able to expand the majority in 2022 is because they had strong incumbents running. Tester in 2024 is a strong incumbent that Democrats need him. He might be the only Democrat who can win statewide in Montana anymore. So if they have any hope of holding the majority, they need senators like Tester to run for re-election and to run a strong race, and maybe they can pull it out by a very narrow margin.
All right, Nathan Gonzalez of Inside Elections, good to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you both.
And coming up, battle over the border, the administration's latest plan on immigration. Welcome back. The Biden administration is introducing a new policy on asylum seekers at the southern border. If approved, it would require migrants seeking asylum in the U.S. to first apply for protections in countries they had to pass through to get here. Officials say they're timing the policy to coincide with the end of Title 42. That pandemic-era rule restricted asylum seekers from staying in the U.S. while their cases were heard. Title 42 is set to end on May 11th.
And with us now is Tony Perkins, president of the Family Research Council. Tony, always great to have you. So Republicans campaigned on immigration as a top priority and pledged to act on the issue. Tony, is the administration's move a step in the right direction?
I think it is. I think they realize they've got a problem. The pressure has been building, and so I think they are taking some right steps. Now, they acknowledge that this is not what they really want to do, but they're being forced into doing it. So I applaud them for at least taking some elementary steps in addressing this crisis at our southern border.
So a group of 20 Democratic governors just launched a coalition to protect abortion access, Tony, saying, this is a quote, as governors representing nearly 170 million people across every region of the country, we are standing with all people who believe in reproductive freedom and health care. What do you make of this?
I make it that they're digging their hole deeper. I want to go back to the earlier conversation you had about the division of the states. I think this is how we see the states becoming divided in the blue and red, life versus death. And what we've seen even in California over the last decade is that, especially accelerating, we see people leaving. They've lost 500,000 people out of the state of California. They've lost a congressional seat. We're seeing this in blue states. People are voting with their feet. I think that's only going to be accelerated by this, left-leaning. It's not going to be much more than a book club of these left-leaning governors. They can't really do much. They say what they may do is when these issues, like we have the abortion pill in the Fifth Circuit, they may come together and file briefs, try to intervene in that case. But there's not a whole lot they can do as red states protect human life, and people who don't want their tax dollars going to abortion, which these Democratic governors are pushing for more of, I think you're going to see citizens leave those states.
Tony, you just mentioned California. Speaking of which, San Francisco is reportedly considering a law on the books, repealing one that boycotts around 30 conservative states over LGBTQ and abortion issues. The San Francisco Chronicle says that law is looking at being repealed because it's failing. Tony, can you talk a little bit about the law and why you believe it's failed in a state like California?
John, perfect example of what we're talking about here. They adopted this after Obergefell because they wanted to punish those states that wouldn't come along with the left's agenda. So what they've found out since then, in this last 10 years or so, is that they're having to pay more money. Not only did they refuse to go to these what they call intolerant states, they wouldn't do business with contractors from these red states. And so what's happened, they've had to pay 10 to 20% more to get projects done. And even they're beginning to feel the pinch as more people are leaving San Francisco. And as people are having to pay more and they're complaining about it, they realize, you know what, this didn't work. But we've seen this before. We saw the same thing in North Carolina after they passed House Bill 10, which was dubbed the bathroom bill. We were told, oh, businesses are going to leave. This is going to kill their economy. And for the 3 years after that, Forbes said they were the #2 place destination for businesses because they had a good, strong economy. I mean, look, the left, they are locked in on their ideology, but it doesn't add up.
All right, Tony Perkins, president of the Family Research Council, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thanks, Tony.
Good to be with you.
Chemical cleanup, the political heavyweights descending on the side of the toxic train derailment when Faith Nation returns. Fallout from the Ohio train derailment is not dying down. The EPA pledging to hold the train company accountable, and it will likely cost a pretty penny.
And meanwhile, as many call into question the Biden administration's response, former President Trump made his way there today. CBN's Matt Galko joins us now with more on Trump's visit and what's next for the people of East Palestine, Ohio. Matt?
Well, Jenna and John, the environmental setback is turning into a political showdown. Former President Donald Trump is criticizing the current administration for not doing enough in Ohio after the wreck, including charging that President Biden has forgotten about the people of Ohio.
We're bringing a lot of water, thousands of bottles, and we have it in trucks, and we brought some on my plane today.
After the wreck and the fiery release of hazardous chemicals into the air and ground, residents have complained about lingering health problems and a potentially contaminated environment.
Unfortunately, as you know, in too many cases, your goodness and perseverance were met with indifference and betrayal in some cases. Biden and FEMA said they would not send federal aid.
The Environmental Protection Agency has been on the ground in East Palestine testing water and soil in the wake of the wreck. And this week, it ordered Norfolk Southern Railway to pay for all of the cleanup, including any associated contamination.
In no way, shape, or form will Norfolk Southern get off the hook for the mess that they created.
As part of the cleanup order, the EPA has the ability to fine Norfolk Southern up to $70,000 a day if it doesn't comply. The company's CEO says they're working with the administration.
We are focused on the environmental recovery here. We've made a lot of progress. There's more work to be done. We're coordinating with the EPA throughout the process.
Fears still remain in the town of about 5,000, even as EPA tests show air and water are at safe levels. The Biden administration has also pushed back against criticism of its response and lack of presence on the scene. The president tweeted out that he had spoken with multiple Ohio and Pennsylvania officials on Tuesday while he was in Europe after a surprise visit to Ukraine. He reaffirmed that all resources will be available to the area while tweeting, quote, "I want residents to know that we've got your back." The current administration has pointed to multiple rollbacks of train safety measures by President Trump, including rules for faster brakes on trains with highly flammable cargo and regular safety audits of train tracks. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is set to visit Ohio tomorrow after he's also faced criticism for being absent. John and Jenna.
All right, thank you, Matt. And still ahead, a home run for baseball history.
Well, finally tonight, restoring life to a historic landmark even more significant this Black History Month. After sitting abandoned for more than 2 decades, one of the last remaining Negro League stadiums is getting a refresh. Hinchcliffe Stadium in Paterson, New Jersey, once served as the home ballpark for African-American baseball players.
But it was left out of the major leagues in the 1930s and the 1940s. Now more than 20 Hall of Famers recently returned to the stadium to celebrate its revival. The city's mayor calling it a national treasure.
People like Larry Doby, who couldn't play in Major League Baseball, who played here. People like Cool Papa Bell, Satchel Paige. So for all those legends, for all those Hall of Famers, we're bringing it back.
And come May, the stadium will be ready to welcome the minor league team, the New Jersey Jackals, and nearly 8,000 fans.
Just in time, and they're getting their just rewards.
Yeah, back to its glory. All right, that's going to do it for Faith Nation.
See you again right here tomorrow. Good night.